Joining me today is Kristen Moeller, author of Phoenix Rising, Stories of Remarkable Women Walking Through Fire. Kristen Moeller knows what it means to walk through fire, literally and figuratively. After losing her dream home and all her worldly possessions to the devastating 2012 Lower North Fork fire in Colorado that claimed 3 lives and destroyed 21 homes, Kristen found herself at a crossroads. There was now life before the fire and life after the fire. Drawing on over 30 years of personal growth and psychological training, her recovery from addiction in 1989, and her experience as a former therapist working with people at their darkest points, Kristen confronted her own grief and explored the resilience it takes to rise from the ashes. Her journey has been one of embracing the messiness of being human, finding beauty in tragedy, and championing others as they navigate their own wild and unpredictable paths. She's a 3-time TEDx speaker. Kristen has been featured on NPR, ABC, NBC, Fox, the New York Times, Huffington Post, and following the fire, even appeared on Tiny House Nation. Welcome to the show. Nice to have you on, Kristen.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here and really nice to meet you.
Well, I am going to hone in on what I just mentioned in the intro, beauty in tragedy. Because most people, including myself, what's beauty? How can you get beauty? How does that happen? How can you become resilient so that you see the beauty in tragedy? And the tragedy, as I mentioned, the fires, your own recovery from addiction, all of those kinds of things.
That is a fine question, and it's certainly not one I would say people need to do immediately. To expect someone to, who's just faced tragedy to immediately see beauty is unreasonable and unfair and all of those words. For me though, it's the fire, the wildfire. It blackened our land. We lived in the mountains and this cute little home perched on the side of a hill looking out at this vast expanse all the way down south to Pikes Peak, and just really beautiful setting. And after the fire, all of that was gone. The trees, these towering pine trees, were gone, and of course our house and all our possessions over the years, gone. And at first, of course, that did not look beautiful at all. But I had to really allow myself to be in the place of not seeing the beauty and just mourning the loss. But as land does, land will recover after fire. It will change. It will morph. And we had, just like I said, these towering pines, and those will take lifetimes to come back. But what started to come back mostly were the aspen trees. And anybody who's read anything about aspen trees, they're just this amazing excuse me this amazing system. They're connected under the earth. And so we had this small grove of aspen trees, and these little shoots started to pop up, and they, at first we weren't even sure what they were, because they were, we hadn't seen young aspen like that. And they kind of looked like, well, maybe these are just kind of any type of weed coming up, but they grew and grew and grew. And what came over the next couple of years was this really large aspen grove, and they grow relatively fast. So they were, 6 feet tall. I don't remember exactly how long it took to get to that, but a thicker aspen grove returned. And I just think, that was beautiful and symbolic, and it was different. And, you can't apply this lesson to or this particular metaphor to every situation, but there are ways to find something ultimately. I have a friend who lost a child, and that's certainly not, you don't want to say to someone who's lost a child, well, find the beauty in it, find the beauty in the grief. But for her, it's about finding signs, looking for signs that have her feel connected to her, her child that is no longer with us. For me, with the fire, it was looking at the land, at what returned and what grew.
what was happening, and I'm picturing your house and I'm picturing your possessions and all of the personal items that were lost and gone. How did that reconcile with looking at Mother Nature? Does seem to reclaim itself, whatever, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's 2 years or 200 years, that does happen, but not necessarily so with all the
Exactly.
yeah, the stuff we've
Stuff.
acquired. I don't like to call
Yeah.
it stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's stuff and then there's stuff. It's tricky with a fire because a lot of insurance companies require a lot of policies require that you replace items immediately in order to get the full coverage. Thankfully, we didn't have that type of insurance. And, I always say, go check your insurance. Make sure you're not underinsured, first of all, and then see what the policy requires. So we had neighbors that had those types of policies where they were supposed to go out and get these items right away, which is just this horrible insult because you don't even have a place to put them and you don't know what your next place is going to be like. We didn't have to do that with ours, so I was very fortunate in that way. But yeah, so you've lost, all your cookware, but you've also lost all your scrapbooks from, if you kept photos, if your family put together photo books. For most of us, it was the pre-age of digital photos. So I have a whole segment. I have this group of friends, and right now we're sharing pictures from when we were young. Well, I have this whole section of my life that I have no photos from. I have some photos from that my mom had, but I just, my teenage years, my school years, I don't have any photos. So things like that, there's not, I didn't find beauty in that, but I did find there was this whole question of, of non-attachment and, excuse me, I just have to cough a sec. Non-attachment, where, people said, well, did it help you with that? Well, yes and no,
Yeah.
Now though, it's interesting. My father died recently, and there were some things that I was supposed to get from a family member, and she's not given them to me. And this has now been, I think, a year. My father died in 23, and I don't have any of these items. And I've been thinking about it of just this, like, these were important. They were just little. They were nothing valuable, but his little knickknacks. My father was a collector of found objects, and these little, they were the last things that would have been with him in his room. And I wanted those things. And he was a hat wearer, and I wanted one of his hats. And she was going to send those to me, but she's not doing that. And so I've been really thinking about what does that feel like to not have these items? And I think because I lost everything, it makes it, I just kind of know, okay, I don't have them, okay, so I don't have them. And I might not have felt that way had I not lost everything. I probably would have been more wanting to have them. But then something for years after the fire, something would occur to me that would be this, this stool that my babysitter made when I was young, and it was she made it out of those, back in the day, the Alpo dog cans that were really big, and she put felt over it and made it this comfy little stool, and she wrote my initials on it. And that was this precious prized possession that had no
So,
value on my
as you're
insurance.
talking, I'm thinking about like the connection to the past is sort of in terms of
Yeah,
the, yeah,
severed. Yeah.
severed. And, obviously the most recent fires in California, what would you say to these people? I mean, I was,
Oh,
reading something about the art collections, for instance. How do you,
yeah.
besides being worth
Oh,
millions of
you know,
dollars? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's the sentimental, the financial, if they have the coverage, the financial piece is handled, but the sentimental, and if you're talking, one of a kind art items, those are lost, those are gone, and you have to let yourself, but it could be something that doesn't have any value, like my stool. I think I wrote a blog post about it called Mrs. Vogler's Stool. And, it can be from, you just need to let yourself mourn it in the way you need to mourn it. And you're going to have people saying, well, you had insurance, right? And that's not going to cover what it feels like to lose these things that are part of our identity and our that we value personally, and they might have lost, yes, insurance might cover it. I didn't lose any Monets. I didn't have any Monets, but insurance, may cover it. But I mean, that's a lost artifact. I mean, that's a lost work of art. But it could be something your child drew when they were 10 that was, just this marker of time that's lost. It could be something that you're, like for me, my mother was an artist and I lost her art that was on my walls, and she had a couple prints, but that now they're some of those things are gone, like gone, never to be seen again. So it's just this, you have to honor the loss of things when you go through it, because it's the world will just not value those things as much as you do, and you need to know that you're grieving something that is, it's a big deal, and not
so
to
you have to,
diminish
you're
that.
going through the grieving process. You have to go through the grieving process, however you do it. And I suppose, and some of that is, I was going to say, there are some certain things that one must do, maybe that we all do, but then there are other things that are very unique to whatever your situation is. As you
Yeah.
described it, loss of a child is different than losing your house. Or how did it help you? Because when I read in the intro that you recovered from an addiction problem, which was quite a while ago, 1989. Did that
Yes.
experience help you to be able to get through this experience of the fires?
Definitely. I've been talking a lot about this, and the reason I am is because of the California fires. So I decided I want this book to land in more hands, because I just think it's so valuable. And we're talking about, the book Phoenix Rising, telling these 21 women's stories who were impacted by Colorado wildfires. All of us want to get it in the hands of people who are going through devastating losses, and then especially get it in the hands of loved ones and coworkers and friends and those that just want to support others and understand what those people are dealing with. So that's why we're talking about this right now. And a lot of what I've been talking about is community, the power of community and the strength of community, and how necessary it is. And I think that is what makes, the 12-step programs are these community coming together with a shared peril, a shared solution, and shared heartbreak, and shared tragedies, and struggles. So it's such a powerful thing. And I benefited from that when I was young, and still do. And so I think that is such an important piece of, what I've been talking about is that in California, there's such large numbers that it's not like everybody can get together, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people. But hopefully within those large numbers, there are various support options for people to come together. So I think knowing that, kind of relaxing into community, finding community by writing this book, it was about finding that we were a community. The 21 of us were a community, So if you don't have community, get the book, and then you have a little community. Reach out to some of us, and that really got me through, just pulling these stories together.
But what about putting these stories of these 21 women? Obviously, you have to get the book to understand all of these stories. But what do you think it is, and you're a coach and a therapist, what do you think, or why some people, after a tragedy like we've been talking about, they retreat and they're afraid to join a community and they isolate themselves? What do you say to those people? And it's very difficult for them to connect. Other people, no, they're ready. They want to jump in and connect with others.
Yeah, I think, let yourself be where you are. because that if you feel like isolating, you may want to, that may be okay, but at least have a couple people who you really can trust, who can get you, just not have you feel so alone. I think the grief process is different. It doesn't mean if you're an introvert, the thought of throwing yourself into community is not the answer, and it's kind of, and I'm an extroverted introvert, so I needed to honor that. But, if you're completely alone and you just feel alone, at least think of one person you could talk to, so you're not completely isolated, and let one person support you in the ways that they can. If it's a person who's going to minimize the loss, then definitely that's not the right person. I mean, that might be when calling some kind of support line, a crisis line, or Googling, and getting the book, of course, but
Yeah.
Googling in your area, who, is there someone that you can talk to? I'm sure there are a lot of crisis lines existing right now, I think, but not forcing yourself into getting support in a way that's not comfortable.
Yeah. What you're, as I said, you were the 3 times you were a TEDx speaker, and you describe that as a program where it helps people to get a sense of connection and community, and sparking a deep discussion. And I guess I'd never really heard. I mean, I listened to TEDx talks and TED Talks, but this whole idea of helping people in small groups to connect. How do those TED Talks do that?
Oh, did I say that? That was really good.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I'm quoting you. It's a good
good.
quote. Take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. The first 2 TEDx talks I did were organized by this wonderful couple, Daphne and Michael, in Denver, and they're not doing them anymore, but they were, gosh, it was just wonderful because they had 2 different, so I did 2 out of 3 that I did were part of their group. So we were, connecting with them, and they're now running a publishing company, which is also amazing. And they are this community oriented couple that keeps finding different ways to bring people together. So I would say that in itself was the sense of community and helping people. I mean, everybody came in with different topics, so that the sense of, I just think it's about being a part of, for me, it was about being a part of something, being a part of something bigger. And with the book project was something that myself and Leslie, we both had these ideas kind of separately. And then someone told us about each other. We had a mutual friend, and then we met each other. And on the phone, this was all on the phone initially. We both experienced fires in the same year in Colorado, and we both were writers, and we both had the same idea about bringing women together to tell their stories. So she and I became this community, and then we created this community with these other writers. But the TEDx were other things that I got to step into because, you only have so much energy. And even though she and I came together, I think it was, a couple of years after our fires, we were still, if you're still kind of a walking wounded for a while. And so the TEDx's were these already established communities that I got to be part of. And, and then knowing that once you're kind of in that TEDx world, you're part of a bigger world. And so I had the TEDx Jackson Hole was my most recent one. And that was quite an honor because it was a very high level, they had really taken it to a big level. And so kind of getting to fit into a community and be part of a bigger project. And with that message and mission of spreading, inspirational stories and trying to make a difference in the world. So that was an important part for me personally, is trying to, I have the Phoenix Rising tattoo on my upper shoulder. And, that concept of rising from the ashes and finding hope was really important to me. And so being a part of organizations and groups of people that did that, but it shouldn't be something, someone said something so great to me. I was very interested in the spiritual aspect of the fire and the metaphors and all of that. So and as a writer, it was really something that just mattered to me. And it just doesn't have to matter to everybody at all. But I worked with a shaman to kind of just delve deeply into these messages and meanings. And one person said to me, she said, "Don't come too quickly to form." And what she meant by that was, you don't have to wrap this up in a neat little package. You don't have to put yourself back together so quickly. You can let yourself be in this destruction space and stay there a little longer than is comfortable. And I just thought that was a really beautiful message. So I'm really about trying to let yourself be where you are in the mess as long as you need to be, and don't feel like, the hero's journey in our culture has become this kind of this straight line progression going, we have the incident and then we rise from the ashes, and then we're supposed to do something with it, in the world that means something. And that can be just a lot of pressure. So I really want people to be, what works for me, it may be the opposite for someone else.
Yeah, and as in the beginning, life before the fire, and as I said in the beginning, life before the fire and life after the fire, you're really not going to go back to life before the fire. And I think sometimes that's what people struggle with also. You're not going back because things have changed. You've changed, the world has
Right.
changed for you, and it's going on to something else or something new,
Right.
or it's evolving, right? And I think not just with fires, there are obviously, as we talked about, other kinds of tragedies that can happen, but you can't go back. You got to figure out how you're going
Right.
to, go forward. We only have a couple
Yep.
minutes left, so I want you to tell us. I know this went very quickly, but if you
It
want to hear the
did.
stories or read the stories, you've got Phoenix Rising is the title of the book that we've touched on with the author, Kristen Moeller, Stories of Remarkable Women Walking Through Fire. That's 21 women. So, Kristen, so tell us platforms we can go to get more information about you, about the book, and about your work, what you're doing.
Yeah, I think the best place is the central hub of my website, KristenMoeller.com. You can Google me, probably even with typos, and Google me. But it's Kristen Moeller, Moeller. That really has all things that I'm up to professionally, and all the books, and because I have 2 other books, and my TED Talks, TEDx Talks, and all of that are on that site. Sorry, my dog is barking to
Oh, he's
emphasize that
ready
point.
for
He wants you to know.
yeah,
And you
show's
can even
time
learn
to
about
go.
my,
Yeah.
yeah, you can learn about my rescue dogs there. So I'm a big rescue advocate. I have 2 pit bull rescues. And so, yeah, everything is there. And I'd love just, this is not about making money for me. As most people know, you really don't make a lot of money from books unless you're a John Grisham or a Stephen King. But
Yeah.
so this isn't about money making. This is about just trying to get the books in hands of people who are going through this or experiencing this. And like I said before, loved ones, friends, family, coworkers. If you know someone in California, send them a book because
Right.
they know someone who's dealing with fire for
Well,
sure.
we appreciate your work and your books and being on the show today. Thank you so much. Kristen
Thank you
Moeller.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Joining me today is Hank Quince, author of The Author's AI Toolkit From Concept to Publication. In his groundbreaking new book, Hank Quince shares practical tools and real world examples to help modern writers harness the power of AI for their creative and professional endeavors. In a rapidly evolving digital landscape, AI has become an invaluable companion for writers, offering solutions that save time, spark creativity, and streamline workflows. Penguins added, "Do not fear artificial intelligence. Embrace its ethical applications." He shows authors how to leverage and integrate AI across 5 key areas of the writing process, which is what we're going to talk about. Ultimately, he empowers writers to embrace AI as a collaborative tool, not a replacement for a writer's unique voice and creative talents. He demonstrates how these tools can act as a creative partner without compromising the author's unique voice. Hank Quince is the author of more than 25 books on topics ranging from fiction to self-publishing to marketing. Welcome to the show, Hank. Nice to have you on.
Thank you, Kathryn. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. And one of the things is I think that people are afraid of AI is going to take over. AI is going to be writing papers for undergraduates, graduates, writing books for people. And so they're reluctant to use it or don't know how to use it. So that's what you're here, obviously, to tell us, and we want to embrace its ethical applications because that's always an issue that's discussed. So, how do we use AI in a creative way that doesn't take away the creativity of the writer?
Excuse me, it actually can enhance the creativity. But you're correct, there is a great fear among people that this is going to put them out of business or, um, is going to replace writing articles. But I think that's overblown. I don't think it's going to really put people out of work, not writers anyway. But the thing you got to understand is that this thing can be used to really do a lot of the mundane and the boring tasks that are associated with writing and publishing. And this, in effect, will leave the author more time to be creative, which is, I found this, I was a little shocked by this myself once I realized it, that this thing takes over all the donkey work, and I have more time to fool around and be creative and come up with, you know, weird stuff to do.
Well, isn't it sort of like, and as I was thinking about AI, obviously, and going to interview you, AI is almost like hiring as you say, get rid of the stuff you don't have to do, the dumpy work, the work that's really not has nothing to do with your creative writing. Like you're hiring people, except you're hiring AI. If you think of AI as a person, 5 different people or whatever, 4 different people
Yeah,
to
just
do this. What are they? Grunt work is what comes to
yeah,
mind, right?
exactly. Uh, just to give you an example, say you're a writer, you're writing an author and you want to come up with a character, and you're having a little problem with it, but you know your character, you want your character to be like Ted Lasso, from the video show. So you write a query and you say, what makes Ted Lasso a great character? And you are going to get a couple of pages of detail on what makes Ted Lasso a great character. And then your job is to pick out the qualities that you want in your character. And it simplifies the task amazingly, The same thing. Or another example is like, so you have this character, you're not really sure how to develop it. So you write an AI query that says, well, the guy is middle aged, he's obese, and he's a con artist. He's always looking for someone to swindle. What would this character's mental attributes be? And you're going to get another list. You can just pick, 6 or 7 attributes, and you got a great character. And the AI did it for you. This is just, 2 examples on writing, but it will also edit your work, revise it. There's quite a lot of things it can do with writing,
So
planning it.
have we discussed planning, writing, discussing? So do you kind of go back and forth with AI? Like as I say, I'm getting back to as if AI is a person or a human, and discussing things with AI. For instance, I'm listening to my grandchildren do that. They ask questions and then they talk to AI as if it is a person, whatever they're discussing, and they can do, you know.
Yes.
Um, and once you get the hang of it, as you're just describing it for writing, it really works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, now let's talk. Yeah.
I haven't gotten to talking to the AI yet. But I'm a writer, so I tend to write stuff.
Yeah. Well, you're gonna have to start talking to them too. I guess you can do both, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you
They
can.
do.
Yeah, I haven't tried that yet. I'm sure I can, but I haven't tried it yet.
All right. So you've written, what did I say, 25 books?
Yeah.
And like which the difference, like obviously you've written 20, that's a lot of books over, I'm assuming a long period of time.
Yeah.
Um, have you written a whole book using AI?
No, and I don't intend to.
No.
No, I do. Um, I've used it for articles. I use it a lot, but what I use it for is to create first drafts. And then I customize them, and put, make it so that it's my voice. I usually have to add stuff and I usually have to delete some stuff from this first draft so that when the article is published, it's really a compilation of my stuff and the AI stuff. But I never take an AI response and just publish it and say I did it. I don't do that and I don't intend to do it.
Yeah. So this is, as I said, I think, and as you've said, it's a collaborative tool. Keep in
Yes,
mind the word collaborative, not a replacement, right? For,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
for your voice. And some of it we're talking about writing, and a lot of it is just kind of grunt work stuff you have to do, like publishing. How would you use AI to help you with publishing?
Well,
Takeaways. Yeah.
if you're self-publishing, what it does is, so, especially if you're first time self-publishing a book, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be, you've never heard of before. So you're going to be taking guesses at it, and you're probably going to guess wrong. And the stuff is like keywords and a book blurb and book categories. Well, if you type a synopsis into AI, AI will give you an amazing list of keywords to use. It'll tell you what book categories to use, and it will write the description for you, a first draft of a description. So this is stuff that stumps a first-time self-publishing author. And AI is a very, very remarkable tool to help those people.
So it makes publishing far more accessible than it ever was, which is a good thing for people, like you
Yeah,
say, for people who are self-publishing or writing their first book. Also, book at marketing. What about marketing? How does it help with your marketing?
it's
Or how?
really good with marketing. It will, for instance, it'll give you a list of hashtags you can use with social media. It will develop a very good comprehensive marketing plan. You write a description of the book and tell them when the book will be published. It will give you a 4, 6, or 8 week marketing plan. It will tell you how to target the book, to the customers. Targeting is a very difficult topic. If you write a novel, there's probably only 1 or 2% of the general population is interested in your novel. So how do you find them? Well, AI is a big help in finding those people and where they hang out and how to reach them.
And you're also talking about business,
Yeah,
managing your brand, which I guess is key, right? You have to
yeah.
manage your brand. How do you do that? Or how do you do that using AI tools?
Well, I haven't really used it for the brand, but it does do stuff like if you're not really familiar with book management, it'll tell you what the break-even point is and how to calculate the break-even point so that you know when your royalties equal your expenses. It'll also have it'll also develop a business plan for you. And once you publish a book, you own a business, whether you want to or not. And the purpose of the business is to market and sell your book. And the AI will come up with a really neat business plan for you.
So, what about other authors? I'm assuming that you have discussions or you talk about it amongst yourself. I mean, you have a community of authors. Are they doing this and or just beginning to embrace the concept of using AI in their writing?
Some authors have, but most of them that I've talked to in the groups were kind of like I said, I'm using AI, and they go, oh my God, you are. I've encountered a lot of fear And it's not just fear that AI will replace them. It's the just a need to maintain the status quo. A lot of people don't want to try something new. And
Well,
I put together a couple of presentations that I gave to some of these groups, and they started to see how useful it could be, and they gradually came around, and they said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, now I'm ready." But they weren't originally.
Well, I would imagine it has to do with demographics also. Younger authors are born into it
Yeah.
and they're familiar with it. They're not afraid of it. They know how to use it.
Mhm.
I'm assuming if my grandchildren know how to use it at 9 years old, then
Yeah.
uh, it's kind of the wave of the future, right? That
Yeah, it is.
everybody's, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody's,
The
and
young people grew up with it, it's like using cell phones. They grew up with it. It's
exactly.
natural to them. But the older folks, the middle age and older authors were very uh, apprehensive about using AI.
So you've given them the author. I'm going to mention the book again, the toolkit from conception to publication. This is the book that you need to get, I guess, to get into the AI uh, modality, I guess you
Yeah.
would call it. But okay, so you've written 25 books. What happened with your first book, and when did you write it? Because that must a whole different time
Well,
period.
uh, yeah, I write quite differently now than I did then. But my first two books were put out by a small publishing company. And I was probably about 12 or more years ago. I was so disappointed in that operation that when the contracts were up, I canceled the publishing company and learned how to self-publish.
And that was it. You
That
never
was
went
it.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
You never
So
went back again.
since then I got 25 books or something like that.
So you
And I've
write,
done novels. Yeah.
yeah, nonfiction books.
Yeah. Yeah. For
So
some reason, I just lost the interest in writing fiction. So I knew a lot about writing fiction and self-publishing. So I started writing nonfiction books about that kind of stuff.
you said you started writing like 12 years ago. Is that it?
No, I started writing stories in the last century.
Oh, the 20. Okay.
I was
Uh,
short stories then, and I gradually evolved into writing novels.
People are going to say to you, I imagine when you first start writing, it's sort of like doing art. Like, well, how are you going to earn a living doing that?
Yeah.
Did you get any pushback on when you decided to become an author?
No, I was a sales manager for a large corporation, and I knew it was only a matter of time till they wanted me to leave. So I decided I wasn't my second career was going to be as a writer. I wanted to write sci-fi and fantasy stories, and they made a very nice retirement package. Yeah, take the money and go away and don't bother us again. So I said, fine. I took the money and ran.
Well, when you
And
took the money and ran and you started writing started writing, how
yeah,
do you discipline yourself to be able to, or how, because I've interviewed different authors, they do it very differently. I mean, some are,
yes.
put it together in the living room, others have to sort of hide in the room by themselves, or what do you do?
I hide in a room by myself,
Oh,
and
okay.
all morning. I start around 6:30 until about 10:30, and then usually another hour or two in the afternoon or the evening. If it's the evening, it's usually a Zoom meeting. But I just thought it seemed natural to me, And when I retired, I was used to getting up and going to work. So I was a writer. That's what I did. I got up and went to work. Only the commute was very short.
Yeah. And you're disciplined, obviously. I guess I would assume,
Yeah,
I'm making that assumption, you're very
yeah,
disciplined.
yeah, I am. Yeah, yeah, I do. I am disciplined about it.
And what about when people interrupt you or get you off schedule? How do you handle that? Or try to get you off schedule?
Uh, it was tough when I first started, but after I growled at people, they got the message.
They're terrified of you?
No, just just leave me alone. At the time, I was just my wife and I think one daughter was home, but they got the idea that I don't want to babysit in the morning. I will do it in the afternoon, but I'm not doing it in the morning.
So you have two daughters, because I have this on my About the
Yes.
Author, and
Yeah.
5 grandchildren. What do they think of you and what you do?
Um, they're kind of not interested. None of them have ever read one of my books.
And
But
how, okay, so why? Because they're too young or
no, they
just not
just
interested?
they're well, it's the new generation, the grandkids. They're not into reading books. They're into reading screens.
That's true. What about
Yeah, read
Audible
books,
books?
yeah, they read cell phones and stuff like that. They don't they think picking up a book and reading it is quite quaint and old-fashioned.
I Audible, are your books, can we listen to them? I listen to books, the Audible books.
Yeah, I only have one novel that I turned into an audio book. It's quite complex and quite expensive to do.
Oh, and then you don't necessarily read it. You have to hire a voiceover person, or
Yes, you do.
most,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, you need an artist. Yeah,
a lot of writers don't, and they try to read their books, and it's
yeah.
not really something they should be
I
doing.
I would put
Uh,
them to sleep. I talk in a monotone.
yeah,
It's
right.
never been my audio voice. You
That's
need
true.
someone for a novel. You need an artist who can really do voices. To distinguish the characters.
Yeah.
And
What
that's an
about, you
art.
say it's expensive? I'm curious, how expensive is it? I mean,
Well, these authors, these artists, they want, maybe $100 an hour. Read a book and may take, 10 to 12 hours for the first draft.
yeah, so it's costly. So
Yes,
you only did
yeah.
that, yeah, with one of your books. Uh, this is kind of a question I don't usually ask, but are there any, let's say one or two that are your favorite that you felt really great about that you would choose as your favorite book to write, actually?
Falstaff's Big Gamble.
Falstaff's Big Gamble. What was
The
that about?
tagline is, "This is Shakespeare's worst nightmare."
That was, and when was that? When did you,
That's probably about 8 or 9 years ago. I took two of Shakespeare's plays, Hamlet and Othello, and turned them into fantasy creatures in a fantasy land. I sort of kept it a plot, but not too religiously.
I mean, that's very creative. How do you come up with these creative ideas with this? I mean, that's a very different kind of book, obviously, than the author's AI toolkit from Cons. I mean,
This
right?
wasn't AI. Um, happened to me a couple of times, but this was the first time I had these. I wanted to write a short story about Othello, and I wanted to write a short story about Hamlet, and I really couldn't get anything going. I just couldn't do it. So one day I just combined the two of them to see if that would happen, and about 30 seconds later, I had the entire story mapped out in my mind. I know I knew the characters, I knew the plots, I knew the endings, I knew how the storylines wrapped around each other. I knew everything about the story. It was, one of these eureka moments.
Yeah. Do you wake up in the middle of the night and say, "Oh, wow, I get it now," and then get up and
And
start writing?
nope,
No.
no, no. I always felt that if it was a really good idea, I'd remember it in the morning. But that's a fantasy.
Yeah. And who do you run it by? I mean, is there someone that you feel that you trust or you feel confident that if you talk to them about what you're thinking or perhaps going to write, that they will give you good feedback besides AI?
Yeah, the latest book, the AI book. I had two what's called beta readers. People read it and poked holes in it and gave me some advice, and they did an excellent job of improving the book for me. And I wasn't sure, if I was on the right track or if the way I wrote it was going to be any value, and they just authenticated that what I was doing was really good.
How do you accept, I don't want to say criticism, but critique as a writer? This is your baby
Yeah.
and you're presenting it to beta readers and they have a lot to say about it. And some of it you maybe don't want to hear. What's your gut reaction? Do you balk
Well,
at it at first or what?
if someone cuts up the book, and tells me what's going wrong with it, the way I react to it is I say thank you, thank you, thank you, because they just told me how to make the book better.
And so you accept it
Yes.
always?
No, no, not always. Sometimes the critiquer is completely off base. In which case I just say thank you and ignore it. But many times, it's right on the money, and I really appreciate them doing it.
So you have to be open to that kind of
I guess
feedback.
so, yeah. I guess
Yeah.
it's, some people get really upset about critiques. I know that. I I don't. I relish them.
Yeah. So if AI is critiquing you, at least you don't have to, you can turn them off or her.
I haven't asked it to critique it. I've asked it to revise stuff and to edit it, but I haven't really um, asked it to critique it. I don't know if it would do that. I don't know. I haven't tried that. I have to write
Yeah.
that down, try it.
Well, what would you say? What would be the difference if you're asking them to critique it?
I don't know. That's
I
the
mean, it would be a
thing.
different question, right? It's how you ask the questions too. I'm fascinated
Well,
with
that's the
this.
secret to AI,
Yeah.
how you write the queries. If you write a generic query, you'll get a generic answer. If you write a detailed query, you will get a really good detailed answer.
Many people don't understand that yet, that you are responsible for like you said, a detailed query is going to get you a very different kind of answer.
When I
Yeah.
first started with AI, I was very unimpressed with it because the responses I was getting was just, gibberish that I could get in any book on writing. Then it took me a while to realize that it wasn't the AI, it was my queries.
Yeah. So that's
Once I
key.
learned how to write the queries, then I became very impressed with the AI.
So what's going to happen, and we don't have that much time left, just your prediction, like when everybody really gets on the bandwagon for this, people are we going to have books that are uh, head and shoulders above all, the writing is going to get much better, much more detailed, more creative, because now you have this tool to collaborate with.
I
The
don't think it's
future,
going to make
yeah,
books more creative.
no,
No, it can't do that. It's still up to the author. The author has to provide the creativity. The AI is just a background tool, an assistant. It's still up to the author or the artist to provide the creativity. I think after a while it'll just be like cell phones, you'll be ubiquitous. Everyone has one, everyone uses it, everyone understands it, everyone accepts it.
and everyone can only use it based on their own, just on their own
Yeah,
talents, I guess, right?
yeah.
If you're
And
not
it's
a good communicator, you're not going
yeah,
to be a great communicator on a cell phone, no matter what, right? You
yeah.
have, yeah.
And there's going to be people who use it unethically.
Yeah, well,
And
that's the scary part, right?
yeah, I've seen ads that say, "Give me a story idea and $500 and I'll produce a novel for you."
Do we need to, as the public, know how to recognize when that happens?
It's difficult, but generally, it's if the story is very boring, it's probably written by an AI.
Yeah, I'm beginning to get, just business letters that I know were written by AI and not by the person that I'm trying to communicate
Yeah,
with. You can see that in an email, actually.
yeah, you
Um,
can.
yeah. Couple minutes left. So, Hank, give us websites to go to or platforms to go to so that we can access
Well,
your book and also the work that you're
yeah,
doing.
if you go to Amazon and search on my name, you'll come to my page with all the books. And you can search on Facebook and LinkedIn and all these different websites. Just type in my name, Hank Quince, and you'll find me.
That's great. This is a very helpful tool. I think a lot of people are going to appreciate it. The author's AI toolkit, don't be afraid of it. From concept to publication, lots of good information. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Kathryn. This was fun. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it.
me too. Thanks.